He's angry about mortgages. It's Angry Mortgage. He's swearing. He's cursing loud. He's old. He's opinionated. And he's been doing this so damn long. This program is about mortgages, and this is mortgage advice, but the advice may not apply to your situation. Contact licensed mortgage professionals for specific recommendations before you make decisions about mortgages. You may not agree with Ron, but if you don't, he thinks you're wrong. Oh, and did we say there is a lot of swearing?
It's not fair to say anything else. Like when interest rates are bumping around 2%, with a 2 at the front of every interest rate, every mortgage rate, I think it's fair to say that's abnormally low. I mean, do you see that as a correlating factor to very high prices in Canada?
There's no question. The low interest rate era, and also quantitative easing, QE, the entire point of that monetary policy, which the U.S. first started during their Great Recession and housing crash, and then Canada started using it, and both countries ramped it up during the pandemic, is to, like, the stated goal of that is to inflate asset prices and the sense that you're wealthy, with the idea, supposedly, that then this will filter down to economic benefits to everyone. This didn't happen. All it really did was inflate housing prices, and that's how we ended up with these lottery-like gains. So while there are issues around supply and demand, and blame to go around at every level of government, also central banks and monetary policy absolutely did play a factor.
Yeah, it's true. If you're actually engaging in a strategy where the real outcome is twofold. When you do quantitative easing, you reduce bond yields, and one of the benefits of that is that governments, who are the biggest borrowers on the planet, they have a lower cost of interest to try to. The theory would be it would help them balance their budgets, but in reality, it just means they can blow out more deficits. But that's one phase of it. The other phase is lower mortgage rates. So yeah, we went through that. And it's certainly, you could absolutely point to that decade as really runaway. It comes in waves, but runaway price increases. It's sometimes people forget that in parts of Canada, we had a 30% increase in house prices between 2014 and 2016. That's bizarre, right?
It's been a long-term problem, and I think you explained that really well when it came to QE, because one of my biggest pet peeves is, it's easy for people to understand when you say printing money, and then you have especially more liberal critics come out and say, oh, no physical money was printed. But what QE did was it made it easier to borrow, and when you can borrow more, house prices go up. So that's how the printing money works, and we ended up with this very inflationary asset class.
Yeah, it wasn't Carney and Paulos down in the basement at the Bank of Canada just oiling up the printing machines. No, I don't even think that's where they print the money. They print the money somewhere else, but you're right, that's not what it is. It's about employing a system that reduces the cost of capital. So the cost of debt. If you create a system that's designed exclusively and only, its only function is to reduce the cost of debt, then you get lower debt costs. It's as simple as that. So in some, in Ontario in particular, I believe another massively important factor in high house prices is the incomparable stupidity of the Greenbelt. Okay, I think that is, and by the way, we gotta put blame where blame is due. The Greenbelt was Mike Harris under his conservative government. Okay, that's the truth about who put it in. Nothing to do with the Liberals, nothing to do with the Feds. I have come to become suspicious. The front story was that we're going to protect farmland, but when you actually look at the Greenbelt, it's really sort of a rock belt or a dust belt or a bush belt. It's very little beautiful farmland is available there. And most importantly, it was said to protect watershed. But strangely, Ontario is surrounded by the largest group of freshwater lakes on the planet of Earth, and I don't think we're ever going to be short of drinking water here. I mean, that just seems ridiculous. But isn't the fact of the Greenbelt effectively hemmed in? It drew a moat around the GTA, which also would naturally inflate house prices. Do you think that's a fair statement?
Yes, very fair. What it did is it concentrated demand into limited areas as population increased exponentially. Simply, the reality is in Ontario, a lot of professions are concentrated in Toronto and the GTA. In fact, that's the reality in Canada. If you want to work in certain industries, you have to be in that area. And with our limited transit systems, the further you go out, you end up with like 2-3 hour horrific commutes. And then it limited supply as well. And the original trade-off with the Greenbelt was supposed to be, okay, we're going to protect this swath of land, but then we're going to allow more infill and development in the other areas. The problem is that extra infill and development never ended up happening. And so now you have this entire, I'd say like very ideologically driven group of people who love the idea of the green belt, but also don't want any development in their communities and don't want that missing middle housing. And you can't have your cake and eat it too, right? Well, if you want future generations to ever own or rent affordable homes and start families, I was telling you before that I live in the beaches and there's lawn signs all over the neighborhood. And this is downtown Toronto on the East End, that say save the green belt. I bet if you walked up and knocked on most of those doors, they wouldn't even know the first thing about the green belt beyond the idea of the green belt. And this has been a really big third rail in politics where politicians don't want to discuss it. One of the best things I think Doug Ford was going to do was use some of his political capital to discuss it. But unfortunately, the way they went forward with that and the corruption allegations really set back the cause of reform surrounding the green belt for, unfortunately, it looks like anytime soon.
If you like the pod, well, don't just sit there. Go to YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and all the other ones and like the pod. And don't forget to subscribe so we can keep being angry at mortgages and swearing about mortgages. Angry Mortgage could use your support.